And I'm back! Happy New Year to all my fellow movie critics that are watching along with me. And as always, before we get started, please press that subscribe button below. Like, comment after my review, tell me what you thought. And of course, if you don't want any of the spoilers, just go forward a couple of minutes. This movie's called Conclave. It starts out, the Pope is dead. That's the very beginning of the movie. Ralph Fiennes is the protagonist. He plays the head cardinal that has to facilitate this process called a conclave. A conclave is how the cardinals from around the world come together at the Vatican to vote for a new pope. We've seen this in our lifetimes to where, at the Vatican, they either have black smoke or white smoke every day of voting in real life to determine when a new pope is chosen. In this movie, it actually goes behind the scenes to kind of show what that process is. They're actually summoned and locked in the Vatican with no access to the outside world because they don't want anything to kind of determine or deter them from voting for someone or kind of manipulate them into voting for someone else. They're completely shut out. Ralph Fiennes' character has to help facilitate this voting process. Throughout the process, you see characters like John Lithgow, who's a cardinal, up for the vote. There's some other people as well, like Stanley Tucci, who's also up for the vote. Some other characters as well. There's one man is representing Nigeria. I'm not super familiar with him, but he's also one of the cardinals up for the vote. And there's a new guy that comes in, Carlos Diaz, who comes out of nowhere. Apparently, he was appointed by the Pope in secret. And so it kind of startles all the other cardinals because they're not even aware that he exists and that he's been ordained by the Pope, but he shows up to kind of shake things up. Throughout the voting, a lot of things come to light. One of the cardinals is found to have a child that he's fathered, and so he essentially disqualifies himself. Another character, John Lithgow's character, is found to be allocating funds very inappropriately and is called out on it. He also is the one who sets up the Nigerian cardinal. He brings the mother of his child to the Vatican and sets him up in front of everybody. It was actually a pretty crazy scene when they're all in the food hall and they find out that this woman's here, and the Nigerian cardinal is very upset and storms off, and everyone knows what happened because of the scene that takes place. Throughout this whole process, Ralph Fiennes' character is really trying to wrestle with his faith and the process of him wrestling with, does he actually want to become pope? Does he not want to become pope? He's been actually endorsing Stanley Tucci's character this whole time. But then kind of throughout the process, they have a back and forth of, do you really want to be pope? Are you really helping me? Are you not helping me? And so that's kind of an interesting dynamic throughout the movie. Towards the end of the movie, this new character that the Pope ordained that no one knew about, Carlos Diaz's character, kind of presents himself as the front runner because he kind of has all the ideals that they're actually looking for in a pope. And in the end, they actually do end up voting for him because there's a bomb that goes off that startles all the cardinals because, again, they're cut off from the outside world, so they wasn't aware that there's terrorist attacks going on outside. But when this happens, Ralph Fiennes' character takes them into an auditorium and is like, there's bombs happening. And then one of the other characters, the Italian cardinal, stands up and says, we have to fight a religious war. It's a war. But then Carlos Diaz's character, who's actually the cardinal of Cabal, was like, what do you know about war? He's like, I've seen war. I've seen death. We can't fight it with war. We have to fight this with something else. And he's like, the war is within ourselves. And all the other cardinals are like, oh my gosh, he's amazing. So they end up voting for him. He wins. Long story short, Ralph Fiennes' character has basically a detective cardinal who's been going around kind of gathering information on everyone and finds out that the character who actually got voted into Pope and is being ordained into Pope had some clinic visits, or was going to have clinic visits. When he confronts him about it, he states that, yes, I was going to do a surgery to have a laparoscopic hysterectomy. For those of you that don't know what that is, that's a surgery to remove your uterus, which would technically make his sex a female. So that was interesting. It was a huge twist. Like I said, if you're at this point, you just got the major spoiler of the movie. He goes on to say, he's dealt with this his whole life, and he didn't want to change what God made him. He felt like that'd be going against his own doctrine because he felt perfect in God's light, which was a very nice message in the end. And that was the end of the movie. Now, in terms of my summary and my scoring system, I do my 5 categories. I start with the cast and crew. So cast and crew, this was very loaded with lots of really, really great actors and actresses who have proven themselves with lots of stuff in the past. You have Ralph Fiennes, of course, he's been in everything. We all love Maid in Manhattan, or at least I do. But more importantly, I'm a Potterhead, so he's played Voldemort, he who must not be named. He could have done nothing else in his life, and he would have been the gold standard in my mind because of that role. So Ralph Fiennes did an excellent job kind of making you very anxious, anticipating what's going to happen, his own kind of internal struggle with do I still have faith? Do I even want to be Pope? Do I want to support these people? What is this process? So he did great. Some other standouts, I would say, Stanley Tucci. Stanley Tucci, for me, is really the actor who never gets to win in any movie. Like, Devil Wears Prada. He didn't get the position that he wanted from Miranda Priestley. Then in this movie, he doesn't get the Pope. He never gets anything, and he deserves it. And in movies and in real life, he did great, as he always does. I have no notes for him. John Lithgow did great. I actually love when John Lithgow plays his serious roles and not his comedic roles. I think he does a really good job of that. So I would say, and there's some other, again, some lesser known actors I'm not familiar with. You'll have to look up on Google. But they all did. The supporting cast actually was just as good as the main cast. I appreciated that. Isabella Rossellini as well. She played the head nun. She did a great job. She had a very big pivotal moment in the movie to where she calls out John Lithgow's character, because the nuns are supposed to be kind of seen and not heard, but she steps up and kind of validates what Ray Fiennes' character was saying to disqualify John Lithgow's character. So I'd say from a cast and crew standpoint, easily a 2 out of 2. Supporting cast, main cast, all great. I would say from a plot standpoint, I enjoyed the plot overall. I think it was something I don't really know a lot about. I'm not Catholic. So for those of you who are Catholics out there, you probably have a more of a microscope on this movie, and you can maybe understand more details of what goes on with picking a pope. I really enjoyed seeing the process of the conclave and kind of what it entails and kind of all the back and forth. I thought it was very fun to watch because it's just not something I'm super familiar with. So I really appreciated that aspect of it. So I don't really have any critiques on the plot. It flowed well. It gave me a lot of information on something I wasn't super up to date about. So I'd say from that standpoint, a 2 out of 2. So far we're at a 4. We're doing really, really, really good. I would say from a set design, production design overall, again, it was great. I've been to Rome before. I've been to the Vatican before, and I felt like I was there. I imagine they were truly filming there. It didn't just look like a set. I believe they were actually there. If they weren't, they did a great job. They fooled me. So I would say from that standpoint, I don't really have any notes because it's not supposed to be a huge production where they're going around the world. It's very closed in. It very much gave a 12 Angry Men vibe for anyone that's seen that movie. That kind of thing where they're kind of closed in, and it's very this anticipation of voting and figuring out what's going to happen next. So I really enjoyed it for that standpoint. So I would say from that standpoint, 2 out of 2. I would say the only part where the movie falters, if I have to give any type of critique, is going to be the music portion of my criteria. For the movie itself, music doesn't usually play a huge role in a lot of my reviews. Usually I'll just give you a 2 out of 2. Unless it's like a musical, then I get really in depth with it. This movie was unfortunately the opposite. I'd say it could have actually benefited from some more musical production. There were some points where it was actually complete silence, and not in a good way, not like in an anticipation, trepidation type way. It was just silent. So I would say from that standpoint, I would have loved actually to have some better music in the background, something to give you a little more anxiety, a little more, oh my gosh, who are they going to vote for? Who's going to be the Pope? It didn't really have that. So I'd say I definitely have to dock at least a point for that. Yeah, got to dock something. But I would say my overall, how did I feel about the movie? I very much enjoyed it. It's subject matter that I'm not super familiar with, so I enjoyed learning about it. Acting was stellar. Obviously, Ray Fiennes is up for Best Actor at the Golden Globes. Edward Berger's up for Best Director at the Golden Globes. Best Screenplay, I believe, as well. Best Movie for Drama. So I'd say from that standpoint, it speaks for itself. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 2. I very much enjoyed it. So overall, I'm giving this prescription for this movie a 9 out of 10. It's actually definitely a must-see. Again, I would say whether or not it gets the Golden Globes for these awards I just mentioned, still watch the movie. I very much enjoyed it. Tell me what you think below. Tell me what you thought I missed. Tell me what, actually, I would like to hear from people that are of the Catholic faith. What worked, what didn't work, what you felt was kind of appropriate, what wasn't appropriate, that kind of thing. Tell me what you think.